Hello guys, welcome back. It's very hot summer day today, and you want to be outside, but yeah, still let's talk about technology, about exciting topic, Python libraries. I implemented recently my Python library, published it to PyPI, Python index, where it's available and anyone can install it. And I thought I should share some insights and some issues I faced when I was creating the library with you. So hopefully the process would be easier when you build the library. And in general, why the libraries are useful? Yeah, probably the answer is straightforward. That's because you could share the source code in this way in your future projects, and people on the web who would like to solve similar problem, they could also use your library and benefit from that. So in general, what my library is doing is actually acts like a wrapper. It simplifies the communication with RabbitMQ. It helps to publish and subscribe to RabbitMQ events. And this is in particular useful when you implement microservices that communicate through the events. So then you could leverage that library. And we're using this library in our open source product called Skipper, which helps to implement workflow and microservice architecture for ML applications. Okay, so let's see. This is the main web page for this library, Skipper on Python index of libraries, PyPI. I'll call it index because it's easier to pronounce, yeah, just for me. And okay, so what you get here, you get information about the current version, instruction how to install the library, reference to the GitHub page, and README content is being displayed. And when I was thinking to build the library, I was checking what are the options. And actually, there are a few options how you could build the library using different tools, different ways to publish the library, and so on. And I ended up using a tool called Poetry because it looked to me as the most simple and straightforward way to build the library. With Poetry, you could create a new skeleton project with all the files and metadata files included, using Poetry, new, and your project name. And by the way, there are two things. There's a production index and there's a test index. So when you test library publishing process, first I would recommend to go with test index, publish your versions there. When you make sure that everything is fine, library is uploaded, it's installed, then you publish it to production index. This way you could save version numbers and you don't upload too many versions to production index. Okay, so this is how library application structure looks like. It was generated with Poetry, and there's a main metadata file from Poetry where you should describe some parameters of the library, like a library name, description, license, and one of the most important is dependencies. Dependencies on another libraries, because I'm sure your library would use dependencies, right? And the good thing about dependencies is that once you'll be installing the library, all the listed dependencies, they'll be installed automatically for you. But this is actually the main problem I faced when I was building the library, and I think I spent around 1 day troubleshooting, because when I was trying to install library from my own library from the test index, it was not able to resolve dependencies. In our case, dependency is Pika, a library which allows to implement communication to RabbitMQ server. This library was not resolved, and I was testing different ways, trying to understand what I'm doing wrong and so on, until I found the answer on Stack Overflow. Someone mentioned that the issue could be related to the fact that when using test library, by default it pulls dependencies also from the test index. And it could be that some libraries, they simply don't have any entry on a test index, and you must pull it from production, like Pika. This library doesn't have doesn't exist on test index, it seems. And this special argument you could pass when you're installing library from the test index to make sure that all the dependencies will be taken from the production index. And this solved the problem, and I was able to install my test library with the dependencies that were taken from production index. Okay, and there are two ways. When you have a library, you can start it either from command line, and if you start from command line, you can put entry point in metadata file over here. For example, I point to the main script, and when you run a library from command line, whatever logic will be in this main script, it will get executed. Another way, of course, you could have as many packages as you want, and you could have methods, classes there implemented, and you can import all the stuff in your scripts and run it from your application. Okay, there's a README file available where I summarized all the commands that you would need to build, publish, and then install the library. So here you publish it either to the test index, as I mentioned, or to production index when it's ready. If library is published to test index, you install it this way and make sure to pass this additional parameter, extra index URL, which would allow to pull all the dependencies from production index where all the libraries will be available. Otherwise, you may face the issue that it's not able to resolve third-party library just because it simply doesn't exist on a test index. Okay, and then once your library is published, you'll see the entry on the web, either on test or on production. And then you can go to your own project, like let's go to this one, and you could simply install with pip install library name, install that library like any other. And you could then either import packages from your library directly in your own scripts, or like this one, you could just test and make sure that library runs. In my case, when it runs from command line, it just prints out the message, so just for test purpose. Okay, so hopefully this overview was useful, and my main point was to say that when you build library, make sure that you actually pulling dependencies from production index. Otherwise, you may get into a situation that some dependencies would not be resolved. And another point is that you could run library in two ways, either from command line or it can be imported into your own scripts. So hopefully you enjoy it, and all the resources that I mentioned in this video, I'll post URLs below the video. You could get there through those URLs. So thanks, stay healthy, stay tuned, and see you next time. Bye.